Good morning and welcome to the ridiculously early J morning show. Basically got nothing done yesterday except talking about some stuff, which I'm glad I finally explained. It's easy to forget your goals and ideas sometimes, and then you run into the situation that prompted you to want them in the first place. I'm actually going to jump to this one. Focus color for cursors in list edit REPL. That is the notion that right now it sure looks like the focus is on this part of the screen, but if I start typing, I'm actually down here. So now we have two gold cursors. That's not right. So these cursors should be grayed out unless one of them actually has the focus. I think I know how to do that. So in the future, what's going to happen is that the application as a whole has the idea of a focus. So in here, we have this MJE file, and it's broken into several pages. So the app has these widgets in it. These are all the different widgets on the screen. We've got the editor on the left. We've got the upper left, kind of unused at the moment. We got the list and the commands, which together make the outline down here. We've got the line editor for the outline, and we've got the REPL, which has its own line editor. When you see both of those cursors, I press E. This is red right here. Red is a component of REPL. R for REPL editor, and this is the editor for the outliner. The editor is just one line, right? So it's the line editor. So the goal is to only give this cursor that color when the item has the focus. The idea is that when these things are drawn, they have a method called render, and that is in UI.ijs. So every widget has create, render, and update. And when render or term draw is called, they take this argument y. So by default, the widgets don't know how to draw themselves, but the subclasses all do. You can render, and you get a flag here, and the flag is has focus. Does it have the focus or not? I think that for the edit control, we have a theme here that all the widgets extend UI theme so that they have access to this namespace. So I think that what we want is like a focus color. So right now this is 7 is the color, interesting, it should be -7. So right now these are the colors for the outliner, and we've got a text color, we've got a highlight color. So the 0 and 7 are these white and black colors, so it's just reversed when it's. So if currently the keys are 9 and 0 to move this left-hand side, and when I do that, it moves up and down. So whichever one is highlighted is using the high color. So UI list is that widget, and we want UI edit, and that should have something that says what the color scheme is for the cursor. So cursor foreground, cursor background. And I would think that the cursor foreground and the cursor background should be defined in here. So let's say CU for cursor. Right, so I'm not actually using the plain cursor. It's a fake cursor that can have its own color. So cursor foreground and cursor background, you always have a pair, right? You have complete control over the pair. 0 and -214. And that is why I say these should be negative. So let's get this working, and we're going to set the high background to -7. Because what I want to do is switch between these two depending on whether we have the focus. Here, where we have CF, anywhere we use CF, we've now, by putting that in the UI theme, UI edit widget extends UI widget, UI widget extends UI theme, so we've inherited all these variables. In fact, I'm gonna make these constants here so as not to break the rendering of the other widget, the list widget, for a second. And the word extends is just co-current. Normally you say co-current UI theme to go into that area, and then you would say co-insert something. So this does that. The co-insert gives you the inheritance kind of thing, or namespace chaining. So I'm going to do this with the intent of not breaking the list widget, and then we'll call these for cursor colors or line editors. And really this is for all of them. So there's really 3 layers. You've got the plain text is just whatever the color is. Then when it's highlighted, that's the highlight color without focus. Unfocused cursor. And CU equals focus cursor. So now CF is the old one I was saying, cursor foreground. So wherever that is, we're going to change that to CU FG. And BG is going to be CU BG. And is there another CB? Please go away. We have other colors here. That's weird. We'll worry about them later. All right, so this should have done nothing. I just moved the definition, and that should still work. Yeah, so we still have 2 cursors. They're still wrong. So now, to make them not be wrong, we have to make a choice between the 2 kinds of cursors. So if y to what we did before, else, and we want something like this, but not quite the same thing. Now we want hi, all on one line. Okay. Now it doesn't look like the focus is being presented that way correctly. So they both think they always think they have the focus. So then the next step is in the REPL, and when we say render here, render UI widget. Oh, and then we have this token editor thing. I believe what happens is in MJE itself, we override the render method for that instant. Render, that's the left-hand side. Nope. In the REPL, render. So syntax line extends UI widget. Ed is a syntax line. So yes, a syntax line overrides the edit widget by providing a second editor on top of it that is just doing the syntax highlighting. But we still render the cursor, and that is rendered through UI edit widget. So we are calling that. So we just draw whichever one, and then we render the cursor on top of it. But we don't want to call render cursor here. We want to call render cursor Y. Let's see if that makes a difference. Did not make a difference. Okay, so we now need to decide how we call render ed. Term draw of ed. Term draw is supposed to get the Y argument as well. All right, so let's try this again. There we go, perfect. All right, so now if we press Shift E, do we actually get the, okay, we do not get the focus. So that I'd expected, because the whole idea of like tabbing or something to get the focus does not work yet. But at least you can see that it passed the flagging correctly. So now if I hit E, so now we have one that is getting the focus. I think if we go into MJE, and editor has the focus. App, or W of app will tell us all those widgets. Wow, there's some big numbers. Editor of app, or just editor, I guess, should be the first one. Yeah, so they're the same. And then if I say focus of app, so F of app is the same one. So that tells me that the line that we're seeing is not the focus. So I don't know why it's getting the 1 flag instead of the 0 flag. Possible that if you say if do 1 else do end. I don't actually know what this does. So the question is this truthy or falsy at the empty string? So if we run that, we get 1. So the empty string is truthy. That's the answer. So what I'm getting at is that in app.ijs, we go through all the widgets and we render each widget and we pass in the flag that says whether f is equal to w. And so if we say the w of app is equal to f of app, yeah, only one of them should get the flag, and that should be the editor, which is this gray area right here, which doesn't really do much. So either this editor that's showing up here is not getting correct flag, or it's ignoring its flag, or the focus is being set here. So let's see. Maybe I already did the work of setting the focus for this reason. So let's see. So the idea of the focus is, one, is going to set the cursor, but two, it's going to set the key bindings that you use, because each widget has its own set of key bindings. But right now, it's this key mode thing that is causing us to switch. Basically, it dynamically changes the path. It's a messy, confusing system. It's a kludge here. And this is one of the bigger items to clean up once I have some time. But for right now, we just have one, like the main loop looks inside of the base namespace for key presses. Right? That's how you pass the name of the namespace that handles the key presses, and we just dynamically change that when we say key mode. Anytime we call key mode, we change the namespace. So we have head keys, REPL keys, and out keys. So basically, we have a little tiny state machine inside of this app that is not part of the app framework. It's just something I tacked on to simulate this idea of focus. And I don't see, like, we're not calling render explicitly in this file. This is for the editor on the left. It's not part of our bug here. So what causes V of the line editor to happen? That's this ed line. We're not calling render explicitly anywhere. Not calling term draw explicitly anywhere. Let's double check the edit itself. Render cursor, we're getting that. If I take this line out, it's not going to have any, oh, hang on, right there. Render cursor Y. Yeah, so the default render method, which this thing didn't pass Y. So I would expect now when I reload this, if I press just plain old E, yes, and so it knows it does not have the focus. So this was a bug. I was passing this instead of just Y, and we just saw that this is truthy in J. Truthy and falsy are words that I guess came from Python, where I don't know where they came from, but the idea that certain objects evaluate to true or false, and they're not the actual constants true or false, or in J's case 0 or 1. So in pretty much any language you look at, is if it it allows you to do an if statement and pass it something other than a Boolean, then it has to decide what those other things are, how they are treated as true or false. And in Python, I'm used to the empty string and the empty list being falsy, but they're truthy here. I would imagine that J is one of the ones where you get a type error if you say like cat in here. Okay. So all strings are truthy. And probably boxes are truthy. Yeah, probably everything except the number 0 is truthy. Okay. Interesting. How you spell falsy? What about OJ0? Interesting. So complex 0 is false. All right, anyway. So the empty string is truthy, and so we need to pass it the cursor color. Okay, so now nothing has the focus. So instead of 2 gold cursors, we have 4 gray cursors. Now the question is, how do we assign one of these? The list boxes are never going to have the focus yet until I actually get real tab control working, where you tab between different things. So right now there are global hotkeys where if you press those keys while you're in the like default state, it moves these cursors, and then if you press E to go into the editor for this editor and you press those same keys, you get the actual characters. So anyway, so now the problem is that the focus is being rendered correctly but not set correctly. So we are no better off. In fact, you could say we are slightly worse off. Yeah, but what I was saying is that I don't intend to make these gold yet, but eventually those will become gold, and you would be able to hit tab 3 times, and it would make this gold. Then when you hit tab, this would turn gold, and everything else would turn gray. Hit tab 1 more time, and this would turn gold, and these would turn gray. And then it would cycle around from here to here, and then probably even to the editor. And we just wouldn't allow tabs in the editor, or hit escape in tab or something to do what tab does for shifting your code back and forth. We'll figure that out. I don't know. Maybe that'll be a flag you can set if you really want tab to indent and unindent. I don't know. Let's see. So now, because I don't have this true idea of focus, we're going to have 3 states. We have 3 states, but we want you to render them distinctly. So one state is when I press Shift E and this has the focus. And one is when I press E and this has the focus. That one's actually visible right now because you can see this dark background. I think that when you're editing up here, maybe that should have the focus. I'm not sure because I don't know what the REPL should look like. You shouldn't ever edit those lines either. Okay, but let's see. So that needs to happen in this little state machine that we've got here. It's an MJE. So basically, whenever we call this key mode, we're changing the state. And so how do I want to do this? I think what I'm going to do is just in every time when I define one of these modes, in each case, I'm just calling it co-push, which allows you to push and pop namespaces. I guess there's not really a stack. It's just a 1-level stack. So push and pop, they have a stack, but the stack is limited to 1 item, and it's whatever this variable is. Is that true? No, the stack is spread out over the different namespaces. So if you switch to a new namespace and you assign base to that, yeah, you give it a namespace, we box that namespace, and then we assign base to that. So we assign our old namespace, Conan, which is the namespace we're currently in, and then we set base in the new namespace to the current namespace, and then this is concurrent. So then we switch to that namespace. Whereas here we take the name of our current namespace when we pop. We take the current namespace and we store it in Y, just as an arbitrary variable. Then we switch to whatever we've defined as base in the current namespace. So this, because we pair these push and pop, and then we return the old namespace. So co-pop returns the namespace that you were just in. I don't know why I did that. We'll see. Where do we call co-pop? We ever assign it? No, we never assign it. So it's just the side effect of that. It seemed like the natural thing to return. So maybe somebody has a use for it. So I'm using this to define these 3 states. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is in each one, I'm just going to say focus is equal to, like in the namespace itself, I'm going to say focus is equal to some item. So lead is going to be the focus. REPL keys, red is the focus. And in out keys, the outliner is the focus. Every day, same time of day. Annoying little thing. I got one more, which is in here. I guess I do have to set the focus here. So I will set it to the left-hand side. I need to set it to something. I can either set it to the editor or the left-hand side. I'm going to set it to the left-hand side, which is called list. So focus is equal to list of base, right? This is redundant. So whenever you have assignment and then immediately use it, we can just, and yeah, like I did there. All right, so now I think this just works. RL, boom, It doesn't set the focus immediately, but, oh no, I set this focus, but I didn't do the next step, which is when I call key mode. Right, so key mode includes to simulate focused widget and just like toggle key bindings, keyboard handlers, and then also set focus to a widget. So each one will have a state where one of the widgets is focused. I don't know what this is going to evolve into. I need to put some design work into this. Anyway, so this doesn't change the namespace. You stay in base, but what we're doing here is we reset what the copath of base is. We explicitly change it. When you call it dyadically, you set the copath of base to this, whatever's on the left. You set the copath of y to x. And so x is a list of boxes. Oh, so copath is like it's like a snapshot of what the copath was before we started defining any of these things. So this is set in stone at the start of the application, and anything you co-insert will be wiped out. So it'll be wiped out when you call this function after this point, unless you update this variable. So this is a snapshot of like how we're going to reset things. And then we're going to insert the copath of the new thing. Whatever we switch to, whatever's on its path, we have to stick that in front so that that becomes the first part of the lookups. And then we put y itself on the front. And that's one of the list chopping operations, right? That is hello world. Cuts off the very last one. Oh, because otherwise you'll wind up with z in it. And then we're going to append that to copath. And you wind up with z twice. So we want to cut off this z. And then also put in ed keys itself. And it's just now ed keys becomes y. Oops. Copath y. So that's what we're doing. Without this curtail, we get z in there twice, and then z takes precedence over everything else, and we don't want that. Z is meant to be at the end, and so I'll put a little note there since it was confusing for me. The curtail is to cut out z. All right, so now we just say focus in namespace, and then where the namespace is box of y. So this is a local assignment inside this function, and f of app. I actually don't know, because you're always assigning to app. I don't know what happens if you use local namespace there, but to me that's a global assignment. I wonder what happens. Right, so f of app is 10. If we say f of app local is box of 3, and we run that, then f of app is 3. Okay, so when you do that, it doesn't matter which version of the thing you use. Okay, that was the answer to my question about whether it matters if you do that. The answer is does not seem to matter, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it at the global namespace level. Is it copula or copula? I'm not sure, but the assignment word. And so now when we render the app, it should do it correctly, except I made a mistake. Let's just run it, but I think that the cursors are going to work except for the REPL cursor. We'll see. That's my guess. So reload again. Then E now has a gold cursor. Yes, good. And then I press Shift E. It did not work. And what I failed to anticipate is that this does not render based on that scheme yet. We didn't tell it to render with the idea of focus. All right, so now we have to do those two things. So first, why did I think that this is not going to work? That is because I told it that red is the focus equal to red, which is the REPL's editor. That is not what I want. I want the REPL itself, because really red is the ed of the REPL. Okay? And if that's the case, is there anywhere else where I actually refer to red? Only in here, KPS of red. Okay, ed REPLs. Yeah, so I do refer to it. And that probably should be cleaned up. You shouldn't be like reaching into it, violating encapsulation. So whenever I refer to red, probably ought to be really referring to REPL, and then REPL does something with it. But whatever, right now I'm reaching into this thing. So violating encapsulation, so that's why we are keeping that. Anyway, focus needs to be on the REPL, and now I think that both editors are going to have focus. So if I hit Shift E now, I expect this to turn gold. It does. Hello. That worked. Okay, so that's nice. And now I want to press lowercase e to get this. La 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 la. Okay. And then, oh, it's weird that Control C there breaks the whole application. I would expect it to just discard the edits there. I guess really I should expect it to copy, because that's what Control C should do in a normal application. But I have Control C set up as my. Maybe I should stop that. But right now, I'll focus on one thing. I'm actually going to write that as a like notes. Control C should be copy, not break, and also Control C in line editor should not break the whole application. And then I had one more thing, which I talked about earlier, and I forgot. It's what I'm about to do now, which is to make these things draw with the highlight color. But what I wanted to say was to use negative numbers for those, because they're from the palette, and the convention should be, if you want one of the 256 X-term palette colors, you pick a negative number. And then if you want the 24-bit color, you use a positive number. And when I defined the color scheme and the theme there, this is set to 7 and 0, and it should be -7 and 0. And I was going to put that as a to-do marker for later, but now I'm just going to go ahead and draw this in that same gold color as the other cursors. And so let's go here and let's go to UI.ijs, unfocus cursor, focus cursor. The TX is just the plain text color. We're going to call this TX foreground. This is by removing the lowercase I and lowercase text. We've now broken that widget, so that should break now, right? RL. Oh, it didn't break because those I didn't delete anything from the universe. I just didn't reload it. So now when I reload it, it's not broken, but you can't see the. I really wanted from that was this assignment of the focus. So when I create the app, I'm just going to swap the order, and so the focus defaults to this one. So I think this should do the same thing and not have this bug. No idea why this is happening. I'm not going to try and debug it. There we go. So now if I press Shift, or if I press E, I should immediately jump over here, and this should not have the focus anymore. Yeah. All right, and when I press Enter, I should be done. The focus goes back there. I press Shift E, the focus goes here. I think I'm done. I had a late start today. It's 9:17. I say I'm done with this. I've got a feature working. So let's see. We are going to mark this as done and move it to, I guess we'll keep it in the sprint until we finish the sprint. And then these will go towards the backlog, unprocessed, our inbox. Okay, so now we need to check in our code. Thanks for watching. Definitely will not be streaming over the weekend. I have a huge backlog of stuff to edit, and I think I've got a good handle on the editing workflow now, so hopefully I can get back to posting regularly and not feel bad about posting an hour video that could be cut down to 30 minutes with no loss, and thus wasting your time. So I feel like I'm in a good place for that. I just have a backlog, so I need to catch up on it, and also catch up on some sleep. I will probably not be streaming or doing any more work this weekend. So I'll see you back on Monday. And so thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.